dude. Don't come through the door. I will shoot.
Hi, I'm Joel Persinger. I'm the Gun Guy. I really appreciate all of your support of GunGuyTV, and I hope you'll continue doing it. By the way, one way you can do that is check us out on these alternative locations, just in case YouTube deletes a video, which they do sometimes. Not as often as they used to, but they still do. So check us out on Rumble and Twitter in particular. And then you can also listen to the GunGuyTV Firearms Podcast on your favorite podcast player, or on Rumble and Twitter, where the video versions are both available as well. I'm going to talk with Dan Reed from the National Rifle Association in this interview. Dan is a great guy and is extremely highly spoken about by Rick Travis at the CRPA and Sam Paredes at Gun Owners of California, because he works hand in glove with them in California. But he also covers some other states where, frankly, in a couple of these states, the only lobbyist that's doing anything in those states is Dan. So he's a very interesting guy to talk to, and I wanted to find out what was going on in the other states in the southwestern part of our country. This first part of the interview, we're going to talk about Hawaii. Now, I admit, in large part, we're talking about Hawaii because I wanted to find some state that's worse than California, and in some respects, Hawaii is. And then we'll get into the other states in the next parts of this video. So this is the first segment of the video. Let's go talk to Dan. Dan, thank you very much for joining me. I really do appreciate your time. I know you're super busy. And frankly, I'm very excited to have you on my show because Sam Paredes and Rick Travis talk about you all the time. They talk about all the work you do in California to help them. You're kind of that guy that's working his tail off that nobody talks about. So I wanted to make sure you were on my show. I got to shine some light on the good work that you do. Now, is California the only state that you cover?
No, so I'm the Western Regional Director for National Rifle Association's Institute for Legislative Action. So I cover 5 states in the West, so Hawaii, California, Nevada, Arizona, and Utah.
So you've basically got the whole western, southwestern United States then, don't you? Is that pretty much it?
Big portion of it, correct.
So, all right, well then let's open up a can of worms, shall we? We'll open up a number of can of worms. We'll talk about California a little bit because there's a lot going on there. But I would like to talk about some of these other states, too, if you don't mind. In particular, maybe Arizona, since I'm an Arizona resident as well. But also, I want to talk about Hawaii for this reason, because people say California is the worst. I don't think so. I think Hawaii may have us beat. So before we do anything, I guess, let's talk about a couple things. We talked about this earlier. The Bruen decision has done wonderful things for us. But some states are reacting differently than others. What are you seeing in the states where you lobby as far as their response to the Supreme Court decision in Bruen?
Absolutely, Joel. And I think that's apropos for what's going on across the country. You've seen some states, in particular the New Yorks, New Jerseys, Hawaiis, Californias of the world, that are actively passing and pursuing legislation in defiance of this court decision. They're really trying to test the limits of it. You mentioned Hawaii. Hawaii is a state that they haven't issued a concealed carry permit or prior to the Bruen decision in over a decade. And that means there was no active concealed carry permits in that state. Their permit duration is 1 year in the state of Hawaii. And so they've been exploring various types of permitting schemes. We saw some action from the Honolulu City Council. And then now Governor Green has a bill on his desk, which is SB 1230, which goes through and does a complete reform of their concealed carry statutes.
So a complete reform, you're reforming from nothing to something.
Well,
that's what you're describing right here. So what exactly are they trying to accomplish in order to, are they actually taking steps to get in alignment with the Bruen decision, or are they fighting it all every tooth and nail?
Well, they are fighting it, and there's a huge amount of reluctance on the parts of the states, and it's similar to what we're seeing in California, similar to what we've seen in New York and New Jersey, and that is Hawaii's now going from a may issue, which was really a no issue, right? And so they understand that they are going to have to issue permits, but they're going to make it cumbersome, burdensome, and inconvenient to actually exercise your right to self-defense. And the biggest avenue that these states are exploring is sensitive places. And they are taking what are generally public type areas that the Bruin decision specifically warned against. You can't make, Long Island a sensitive place. And so they're turning one of the popular things that we're seeing in a lot of these bills. It's similar to what we've seen in the California bill. It's what's in the Hawaii bill is restaurants that serve alcohol, including their parking lots, right? Public parks, things of that nature, where you might go and frequent an eatery of some sort. You might go walk your dog in the park, and they're considering these public places.
Well, I mean, in California,
places, I'm sorry.
Yeah, California, I think, just passed SB 2, which is their version
Correct.
of that, through the Senate. Now it goes to the Assembly, or the other way around. I don't know. It's one way.
No, it's a Senate bill. The California one, Senate Bill 2. It just passed the Senate. It will be having policy hearings in the Assembly coming up in the next probably 2 or 3 weeks.
And that one, is interesting. I remember the first version of that was like there was the list of places you could carry was quite a bit shorter than the list of places that you couldn't. Fortunately, if you're watching this and you're worried about that, I know Chuck Michel and his folks already have a lawsuit ready to go when that's signed by Governor Newsom, which arguably it's going to be. Do you see this as something that's actually going to come to fruition, this kind of similar sensitive places law in Hawaii? Is that the direction that they're going?
Well, that's what's in the bill right now. And the thing that's where I talked about defiance earlier is we've seen New York, New Jersey pass these types of laws, and we've already seen some action in the courts where injunctions have been issued against these types of laws. So we have been pursuing litigation across the country on this subject, and we will continue to do so. And Hawaii and California are no different. And with having some of that precedent from those other district courts, it'll be helpful in pursuing a California or Hawaii case. Obviously, they both sit in the Ninth Circuit, and so that's helpful as far as pursuing it. But we're seeing this push now. Recall in California that they ran a very similar bill to this last session that ultimately failed to get the votes to pass and go to Newsom's desk. And right now we're in opposition, and you're seeing opposition from law enforcement still this year. And that was the big hurdle that they ran into last year. The thing that the sponsor and the supporters of this bill in California are looking at this year is last year it had an urgency clause, which raised the threshold for the number of votes required. This bill doesn't have an urgency clause. And so it's a little bit different.
Now, as we compare California gun control to Hawaii, see, I'm trying to find some state in the country that's more draconian than California. I think Hawaii is it. But as I compare the two, you said Hawaii has not issued a permit in forever.
Forever.
And did you say that the permits are only good for a year?
Correct.
Wow. Okay, it is worse. Is it? Do you now in Hawaii? Are there other battles that we're fighting in Hawaii that where
Sure.
our brothers and sisters in the islands are struggling with gun control?
Yeah, Hawaii's laws are just different, right? They're bad in their own way, and same with California. You know, there's just so much regulation when it comes to the Second Amendment. You know, you look at a state like California, there's hundreds of laws, and it transcends from the criminal code to the vehicle code. Like it's all across the map. And then you have a whole regulatory process in California. And so that's where it gets really convoluted, right? Hawaii is a little bit more direct. It's all statutory for the most part. But their laws are just different, right? They're a permit to purchase state. And so, and the way you register guns in Hawaii is you take them down to the police station. And so you could do a private transfer with someone who has a permit to purchase, and then it's incumbent upon the person to go down to the station to register the guns. And that was a huge issue during COVID. And it was a huge issue prior to COVID, with just dealing with the volume of people. If there was, a gun show downtown or whatnot at the Blaze Center or whatnot, and then you had people who said, okay, I have X amount of days to go and register my gun. Well, they'd show up and, the line would be long, and the police were not over accommodating and making that happen. And then obviously with COVID, they were trying to limit exposure, and people were very worried about being out of compliance, et cetera. So there's some things like they don't have permit to purchase on, or background checks or eligibility checks on ammunition like California does. But you have permit to purchase, right? And then they have very weird transport laws and a lack of shooting ranges. Like there are some of the islands do not have public shooting ranges.
So you got to get on an airplane or a boat to go to a different island to go shooting.
Or
your private
license.
Property. Right. Okay.
So,
I have a hunting license. Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
So so I guess, you're a California kid, and so am I. We're on opposite ends of the state,
Sure.
north and south, but nevertheless, it's kind of interesting thinking about Hawaii and the way you guys fight in California, because you and Sam Paredes at Gun Owners of California and Rick Travis from CRPA, you guys work pretty much hand in glove at the Capitol all the time. I mean, you're a team, even though you're representing different advocacy organizations. Do you find that you're getting that kind of help and that kind of cooperation with organizations in other states? And in particular, is there a state organization in Hawaii that you're working with?
Sure. I mean, each state has its own unique flavor. California, obviously, we have a large population and a huge volume of gun-related bills every session, right? I think we started this year out with close to 70 firearm-related type bills. And that's dwindled down as the policy process has gone on, as certain bills were held in the appropriations committees, et cetera. And so it's different. You mentioned Rick and Sam. We are a team, and California is unique from some of those other states where, even though this is a full-time legislature in California, their policy committees meet once a week, and they meet for 4 to 6 weeks, depending on what's going on. And the public safety committees, which is where the gun bills go, the Senate and the Assembly meet at the same time on the same day. And it is not uncommon for gun bills to be up in both of those committees, and oftentimes at the same time, right? And with California right now, the state capitol is under construction. So you have hearings that are going on in the old Capitol building. And then you have what's called the swing space, which is about a block away, where the Senate committees are going on, right? And both the Capitol and the swing space have security, and there's always a lot of traffic at the Capitol. And so you might be sitting over in the Assembly Public Safety Committee, waiting for bills to come up, because it's not a specific order per se. It's when the author's there and whether they go in file order or sign in order, right? And so you're going, okay, I've got 4 bills up in the Assembly today, and I've got 2 up in the Senate. And you're waiting. So you've got the Senate committee going on your phone, waiting, and you go, oh my gosh, the author's there. You realize there's a delay. So they're already maybe a minute ahead of you, and you take off going to try and make it over to that other building. And it can be a real challenge some days. So having that team with Sam and Rick, oftentimes we'll split up, we'll cover for each other. And then the way the committees work in California is they allow 2 witnesses, 2 minutes. So very limited participation, other than, they'll allow people to add on and say a name and an organization, but they limit it to generally 2 primary witnesses in a very limited amount of time. In Hawaii, their committees kind of meet on various days, but you generally don't have that overlap. Or like in a state like Nevada, their judiciary committees are where the gun bills generally go, and the Assembly meets in the morning and the Senate meets in the afternoon. So you don't run into that crossover.
So you mentioned Nevada. I feel I have beat up on Hawaii significantly now. so that hopefully people will say Hawaii has the worst gun laws in the country and stop picking on poor California.
Yeah, it's just like I said, it's different. You know, they have some things that are.
Anybody, they're all going to, now they're going to say to me, I'm going to get letters from hotels and whatever in Hawaii saying you're not welcome anymore. Don't even dare come out here for vacation or anything else. Thank you very much for watching the entire video. I really do appreciate it. As I mentioned, this is the first part of a longer interview. So we'll be talking about the state of Utah, what's going on in Nevada, what's going on in Arizona. And yes, we will talk about California. Those will be in the following segments that'll come out in the next few days. So keep your eye open for those. In the meantime, please, again, check us out on these other locations. And if you would like to support Gun Guy TV, I urge you to do that by going to Gun Guy TV Crew. You can join the crew and you'll get exclusive content you can't get anywhere else. Plus, you'll also be adding some support that helps me keep going. You can do that by going to GunGuyTVCrew.com or just going to Patreon or Locals and searching for Gun Guy TV. Have a great week. Thank you again. And wherever you go, whatever you do, stay safe.